Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus. I'm joined once again by my new friend James Peregoy, co-manager of the Ave Maria Bond Fund and the Ave Maria Undiscovered Fund, which he's joining us to talk about today. He's part of Ave Maria Mutual Funds. James, thank you very much for joining us. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Marcus.
A month has flown by. So one of the topics that is crucial to this conversation that we're going to continue to have is what makes morally responsible investing. Let's talk about that first.
Sure. So broadly speaking, morally responsible investing is a subset of impact investing, which screens out companies from inclusion in a potential portfolio to align with the belief system of the investor. And what that means for us as Catholics and specifically for the Ave Maria Mutual Funds is that the companies don't violate core beliefs of the Roman Catholic Church by participating or engaging in any of the following activities, those being abortion, embryonic stem cell research, Planned Parenthood, or pornography. In recent years, ESG has become a prominent topic for both, some good and bad reasons. It may have been needed long ago, but I think a lot of people recently would say it's overstepped. And this is a very broad umbrella term, but it's so broad it doesn't necessarily align with the belief system of all investors. ESG, for context, stands for enterprise, social, and governance, and that has various implications for companies. But with its increasing scale and political clout, we've seen regulation and harmful business practices imposed on companies from ESG. So, for example, there's been various carbon neutral pledges, and this would come from the E in ESG. Imposed on oil and gas companies. And then also there's been executive compensation tied to DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion rather than relevant business operating metrics.
What makes a company that's a Catholic investment company different than especially something like Ave Maria Mutual Funds?
Yeah, so at the Ave Funds, we have a Catholic advisory board, and it's comprised of prominent Catholics, both commentators and more on the theological side, that meet regularly to review religious standards and criteria, which informs our screening process for weeding out stocks for exclusion from our potentially getting into the portfolios. So we have a narrow focus and a zero tolerance policy for companies associated with those anti-life or anti-family transgressions. And by focusing on those previously mentioned screens, we seek to invest in companies that are good at what they do and good stewards of capital. So if a company is performing well, as reflected in its financial standing, improving or taking market share, whatever it may be, it shouldn't matter who is on the board or what their carbon profile may be if it's not really associated with their business.
Let's tell us about some of the pushback against some of these companies who, at the behest of ESG, they've just gone way across the line.
Yeah, so listeners may be familiar with some of the consumer boycotts that have targeted several companies in the last few years. While these weren't explicitly Catholic boycotts in nature, many of those companies' offenses triggered negative consumer sentiment that may overlap with that felt by Catholic consumers. So, for example, in 2023, Bud Light sponsored social media posts with a transgender influencer. And the response was started on social media, as many of these boycotts are. They lost $400 million in sales rather quickly. Bud Light's parent company, Anheuser-Busch, did. And that resulted in them losing the number one beer market share in the U.S., and it had good results. The company distanced itself from the offensive post, forced out some marketing staff associated with those posts. Additionally, Target in 2023 to 2024 had a Pride Month apparel line, which appeared to include inappropriate children's clothing. Here, the boycott was seemed to be effective as well. The company scaled back that apparel line in question, allocated less prime shelf space to the line. And there's been, a multitude of other boycotts that targeted some brands where the companies were supporting LGBT events or had internal DEI initiatives. And this also forced some company responses and apologies. And so these boycotts were effective. However, the common thread was that the companies targeted tend to be more customer-facing and discretionary spend names that consumers can choose to interact with, making the offensive actions of the company more tangible. So, if I go into Target, I see this offensive apparel line, I then have to go to the checkout counter and hand them a card and cash or whatever it is. It makes the offense much more, concrete in my mind, like a slap in the face.
So this kind of withholding of spended dollars, that's a good habit to have. It's prudential spending, right? And that's precisely the same kind of virtue that can be exhibited in investments.
Yeah, that's right. So if consumers can do this with their spending dollars, investors can do this with their investing dollars. And additionally, there are more companies that violate the teachings of the Catholic faith in ways that go undetected by the public due to their relative obscurity or even ubiquity. And our proprietary process for screening them out is, that's the basis of our niche as a Catholic values-oriented family of mutual funds.
Let's talk about let's talk about some of the offenders of the Ave Fund's screening, the Catholic values screening that is picked up, and so we can adhere to Catholic ethical models.
Yeah, so I'll start with the first two as a group because they often go together, but that being abortion and embryonic stem cell research. Some of the common sector or company offenders would be hospitals, pharmacies. More on embryonic stem cell research, it's biotech and pharmaceuticals. And often just, they feed into a lot of products that are kind of co-located with healthcare services that people use for benign purposes. So it makes it kind of difficult to avoid, launching some kind of consumer spending boycott. And then a couple more. So Planned Parenthood contributions. Any corporation can make a corporate donation. So this one isn't really specific to any industry, but there have been many, often located in states with cultures that are more progressive-minded, that will make these contributions. And they don't explicitly advertise it or make it apparent, so it's tough for the regular person to dig into that and know.
But thank goodness that something like Ave Maria Mutual Funds does the screening for us. We've got about a minute left. Tell us about the Undiscovered Fund launch. Yeah,
sure. So we launched this May 1st on the 25th anniversary of the Ave Maria Mutual Funds. The ticker is AVEUX, and it's a diversified fund with 40 to 60 holdings, with an emphasis on investing in companies with market caps between 100 million and 10 billion. So more on the smaller side from what we've seen recently. There's been a large focus on large caps. That shift seems to have occurred in the last 10 or so years. And to be fair, large caps have outperformed. And additionally, the AI technology story that's been evolving over the years has largely been spearheaded by a lot of these large cap companies. So, however, past performance is no indicator of future results, but over the last century, small caps have tended to outperform 1 to 2 percentage points per annum versus their large cap peers, with the caveat being they exhibit more risk. But yeah, so if you would like more information about the Ave Maria Mutual Funds, visit www.avemariafunds.com or call 866-AVE-MARIA.
Well, thank you so much. My guest has been James Peregoy. He is an investment advisor with Ave Maria Mutual Funds, co-manager of the Ave Maria Bond Fund and the Ave Maria Undiscovered Fund. And all of this will be included in the description of today's program. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter.